the Board of Finance. Chris, would you read the roll, please?
Deanna Carlson. Tom Schulte.
Here.
Todd Lavieri.
Here.
Michael Chen. Absent. Chris Labrise here. Victor Alvarez.
Here.
Maria Weingarten.
Here.
Robert Hamel.
Here.
Colin Dobbin.
Yep.
I'll come back to him. James Young.
Not here.
Nicholas Matrakis.
Here.
Jan Schaefer.
Here.
Colin Dobbin. Okay,
He's in.
he's in.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
You want to,
Okay, we still need to seat someone
Nick?
for
Michael.
Michael.
So moved.
Nick?
Yep.
Okay. Second for Nick? Second. Bob, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? All right, Nick, welcome back.
Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve the April 9th minutes, please. Any questions, edits, changes?
I'll move.
They were long.
So moved. Yeah.
We're good. So moved. Okay.
Yep.
Second? Second. Victor, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, thank you. Okay, for Selectmen's update, Deanna.
So we had our selectmen meeting this morning and it was a rather long one, but of note is we approved just under $2 million of paving. So Tiger and his crew are gonna be really busy in the next 3 or 4 months. But things should be starting to look really good. Of note is we're gonna be redoing the Locust and the lumberyard lot with a not a full mill and pave, a more, something to make it safe, but in case we decide to do something on an affordable housing basis in any of those areas, we want to not spend a full mill and pave, but we do need to make it safe. We approved our OCIO provider. Russell Investments is our new OCIO provider after Tom was very involved in that. We had many meetings, many hours of meetings. So, but I think we've got a great provider. We had an update on Waveney House. We approved a contract with, oh my gosh, what is it? Hoffman, thank you. We approved a contract with Hoffman architectural and engineering firm. They're going to be doing an envelope look at the roof and the building. We have a lot of water incursion at both Waveney and at Lapham, and they are going to be sort of giving us a second opinion. So we approved that today. We also approved National Public Works workers. Public Works Week, May 19th to 25th. So if you see any of Tiger's crew out there.
You don't have to kiss them on the lips or anything, do you?
Wow. Didn't see that coming.
Oh, sorry, thanks.
This is not the fall guy. You just can't.
And then I guess the other thing that I've been socializing over the last month or so in various forums, and I just did the parking commission last week, is that we are looking to meter Elm Street and maybe make Park Street free. We like to look at an economics 101 way of looking at it. Our most valuable parking in this town is free and our least valuable is paid. So we are going to look at that and maybe try and switch that up. And hopefully that will alleviate some of the congestion that the circling that's happening on Elm Street to get a free spot. So that's it.
Any questions from Maria? From Maria, Deanna? Maria, do you have a question for Deanna? Okay, we're good. Thank you. Let's see, next on the agenda, our actuarial valuation. We do this every year. We provide an update to the board of finance on where we are and how we're doing and our process and our assumptions and so forth. So, Tom, I'll turn it over to you. You just had your meeting and maybe a quick update and invite our guests.
Yeah, so Ellen and Rob, if you want
Yeah,
to
just come on up.
Everyone, Rob Lassard and Ellen Kaczynski are our actuaries from Hooker and Holcomb. They've been advising the town as long as I've been on the RPAC, so I'm going to say they're longtime actuary advisors. As you all know, we oversee as sponsors of a defined benefit pension plan as well as an OPEB plan. And so you will have heard Deanna speak a little bit about the advisory work that was formerly with Vanguard. As you know, Vanguard has exited that business when we ran a process whereby we selected a new, what they call an outside or outsourced chief investment officer role. It's an investment advisor role, but in many ways, more importantly to our oversight and administration of these plans, or the actuarial advice that we get about the manner and methods by which we administer the plan and make sure that our investment levels and whatnot are all kind of aligned with where we see the obligations and liabilities of those plans growing in the future. And so, you know, Ellen and Rob are very involved with the RPAC, and we speak to them at least a couple times a year, and they give us very important advice and reports about it. And so then once a year, they come and speak to the larger board. And so that's what their presentation is. And maybe with that, I would turn it over to you all.
Okay, thank you. So I think everyone has a copy of the presentation that we put together. We're not going to go through it page by page, don't worry. We're just going to hit the highlights, but certainly if you have questions on any of the slides that we don't cover, please feel free to just ask us. So we're actually going to start on slide 5. I think one of the questions that comes up a lot is, you know, if this plan is over 100% funded, which it is, why do Rob and I calculate a contribution due to it every year? So hopefully we can answer that for you. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the funded percentage of the plan, and you might see different funded percentages in different reports, and so we'll talk about why that is. But slide 5 gives kind of very high level information on what we call the ADEC, the Actuarially Determined Employer Contribution. So every year we provide you with a report and we tell you what that contribution is due to the plan for the year. And when we do those calculations, it's made up of 2 pieces. You can see the third bullet on this slide shows the basic formula for determining the ADEC. It's made up of what's called the normal cost, and that portion of the contribution is related only to your active employees. So only employees who are currently working for the town of New Canaan earning benefits. As they're working, they're earning another year of benefit service, which is increasing the ultimate retirement benefit that they're going to receive when they do retire 10, 15, 20 years down the road. Their salaries are also growing, which also increases the ultimate benefit they will receive. So the normal cost portion of the contribution is related to the present value of that 1 year accrual for those active employees. Then we have the past service payment. So each evaluation cycle, the most recent one we ran was as of July 1st, 2023, we measure your assets and we measure your liability. When we're doing these ADEC calculations, we don't use the market value of assets directly. We indirectly use it in our calculations. And we use what's called an actuarial value of assets, which essentially smooths out market gains and losses over a 5-year period. So as the market does really well or really poorly, you don't see that same swing in your ADEC. So the actuarial value of assets is a tool that we use, and it's very common. Most municipalities do use that actuarial value in the calculations versus the market value, just for that reason of smoothing the ADEC out. So we measure that actuarial value against the present value of the liabilities as of the valuation date. Currently, we're using a rate of 6.625% to value your liabilities. What that means is that's the expectation of how your assets will perform in future years. We assume that they're going to earn 6.625%. So the past service cost payment portion of the ADEC is the difference between the liability and the assets on the valuation date. Typically, the assets are less than the liability. And so the past service cost payment is a method to bring the plan up to 100% funded. In your case, the plan is over 100% funded. So the past service payment is really bringing your contribution down because we're bringing your assets down to your liability. And we'll look at the numbers on that so you can see how it works. So this is really the normal cost portion of the ADEC is why you still have a contribution due, even though the plan is over 100% funded. You might see different funded percentages if you're looking at the town's CAFR versus our valuation reports. And the reason is because our valuation report is looking at that actuarial value of assets. The CAFR is always based on the market value. So those two funded percentages are going to look a little bit different, even though they might say they're as of the same exact date. So that's kind of high level how the contribution, the two pieces of the contribution. And then I'm just gonna flip to slide 8. Yeah, slide 8, which shows the details of the ADEC. I'm gonna pass it over to Rob, and he's gonna walk through exactly how we came up with that $505,000 ADEC that I think everyone has seen and is familiar with.
Okay, thank you, Ellen. Thanks everyone for having me. Ellen basically explained all of this in words, and now we have the numbers to go with it. So the normal cost actually has 3 components to it. The gross normal cost represents the piece of the liability due to the upcoming 12 months from the valuation date. That gets offset by what we think the estimated employee contributions are going to be for the plan. So for the right to get a pension when you retire, employees have to pay into the plan, as I'm sure all of you already know this. In addition, there are administrative expenses that get paid out of the trust. So we do what's called an expense load to account for this in the normal costs. So you add these 3 numbers together, you get the 1.99 million for the normal cost that's attributed to the town. As Ellen already mentioned, since the town is overfunded, the unfunded accrued liability is actually a negative number. It's going to offset the normal cost. So we amortize the unfunded liability over a 15-year period. So the 1.58 million that you see here is going to be offsetting the normal cost, which gets you to the 412,000. The 412,000 number is as of July 1st, 2023. Of course, you're not going to actually pay the fiscal year 2025 payment on that date. So we do an adjustment for interest and inflation, which gets you to the 506,000. Are there any questions about the mechanics behind this?
Well, I'm just curious, why 15 years to as the amortization?
Best practice kind of constitutes that 15 to 20 years is a pretty appropriate amount of time to, you guys are in opposite situation, but typically to deal with an unfunded liability.
Once you get less than 15 years, your contribution tends to be more volatile.
Swing around, yeah.
Yeah, so 15 years is really, it's my personal preference for amortization periods. I have some municipalities that just because they, it increases their contribution, they don't want to bring it down. But I like 15 years because it limits the volatility, but it's also a short enough period of time that the end is in sight, if you will.
Forces some discipline, I guess.
I wouldn't skip page 7. Maybe take 1 minute on 7 because you walk
Sure.
through how you got to the overfunded situation and status for that.
No problem. I'm gonna push this away a little bit. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Okay, so every other year we do an interim valuation on the plan, and what this means is we don't refresh the data. We use the same census data that we used the year before when we do odd year valuations. So As you can see at the top of the executive summary, the counts are exactly the same. We're just using the same information that we used the year before. We roll forward the liabilities. We use the most current assets at that time. The assets are the more important component. And then when we do the 2024 evaluation, we'll update the census at that point. So there are 783 people in the plan as of July 1st, 2022, and therefore July 1st, 2023 as well. We've got some payroll information in the next two rows. Actuarial present value of future benefits represents everything that could occur based on the assumptions in place. It's not just the accrued liability, we're looking at the future as well. So for the actives, they're still growing into their benefits. They're still attributing what they can get, which is why there's a difference between the actuarial present value of future benefits and the actuarial accrued liability for everyone who's already inactive. So retirees, terminated people, those two numbers would equal for that kind of person. Market value and actuarial value, Ellen already went into some detail on. I'll just mention that in 2023, there's about a $7 million gap. The actuarial value is slightly higher. Unfunded accrued liability is simply subtracting the actuarial accrued liability and the actuarial value, and that's the number that's going to get amortized to offset your normal cost. Funded ratio is, we're just doing division between actuarial value of assets and actuarial accrued liability. And then we already went over the ADEC.
And we think, again, this is the market value of 158.9, call it 159, as of July 1, 2023. And we think it's 180 now?
Yeah, we think in January, it was 180-ish.
Okay.
Right.
Maybe higher. Okay, questions?
Yeah, just a quick question. So I'm just reading this one. On page 7, we have the unfunded accrued liability of 15.7. And then, no, forget it. I understand that. I've answered my own question.
Okay.
Never mind.
Does the plan provide for a credit, administrative credit of any kind?
Could you kind of elaborate on what you're referring to?
So would we have, in my job, we have the expenses, but then there's also credits that we get from the fund or wherever it comes from. It's about $65,000 a quarter. And we
Okay.
offset fees with that.
This is going to be based on a formula. It's a final average earnings. It's you have an accrual rate, you have a final average earnings piece, and it gets multiplied by the number of years that you've accrued into the plan.
Okay.
So the answer to your question, the short answer is no.
Okay, got it.
So on slide 7, I see on the bottom row, the ADEC is jumping from 207 for July 2022 to 505. And I'm not really, what's driving that big jump? And what does that mean for the town?
There's a lot of leverage when you have these two offsetting pieces, and I don't have the components in front of me.
I think part of it, if you look at slide 7, the unfunded accrued liability line, in 2022, it was 17 million. That means you were overfunded by 17 million.
Yeah.
In 2023, you were overfunded by 15 million, so essentially $2 million less. So that amortization piece that Rob was just referring to was larger last year. It was reducing that normal cost more than it is in 2023.
So the unfunded accrued liability is you amortize, if you look at page 8.
Right.
The amortization of that number is the $1.5 million credit against the $1.9 million obligation. So what happened is that credit would have been larger in the prior year, resulting in an ADEC that was 200 and change. But this year, that's why drop to the bottom and we have five.
Another way to look at it, I think, Victor, is on 7, the actuarial accrued liability in 2022 was 145, right, 0.9 million, and went up about 4 million to 149. But the assets went from 163 to 165. So the assets didn't go up as much as the liability, and that's why I think the unfunded part dropped 2 million. That's the math. I'm guessing it's going to reverse this year. Who knows? We'll see when we get the results. But anyway, so it's a good problem to have.
Right.
Not even a problem.
One other point for the board to just understand, because Ellen and Rob referred to the assumed return on the assets is 6 and 5/8,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
And just so you know, that is a number that the RPAC recommends and the board agrees to, right? So we set that in the context of the obligations to run this town and its fiduciary duties to the beneficiaries and whatnot. And there's a lot of consideration that goes into that. And we benchmark it against what our other communities are doing. And, you know, not all of those comparisons are apples to apples because we enjoy an enviable position of our funded ratio where not all the other communities do. And so there's other drivers that would result in certain towns making certain decisions, but we factor all of that in. So just to bear that in mind.
Oh, very thoughtful.
Right.
Yep. Yep. In fact, why don't we do this? Unless there are other questions, go to 12 to show that, because it's good benchmarking. Everyone likes to know what the benchmarks are, and then do the OPEB.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
Sure. Yep, so slide 12, this information was pulled from publicly available information, the CAFRs of each of these towns. So it was pulled from the June 30th, 2023 financials that were available. So you can see the assumption being used by each of these towns in your peer groups. In the parentheses, it shows how many towns or how many plans each of these towns sponsors. Many of them have more than one plan that they sponsor. So you can see where your assumption falls in comparison to others. You're at 6.625, pretty in the middle of the pack. Again, as noted, this is, I think one factor that you look at is where you fall in the peer group, but there's loads of other factors that go into the recommendation of that 6.625. And then the funded percent. Again, this is on a market value basis. This is not on an actuarial value basis. So this is just straight market value. This is the funded percent of each of these towns' plans. So only one other town was over 100% funded. It's also important to note that you don't want to just compare the funded percentages. You want to make sure you're looking at that underlying interest rate assumption as well, because the higher the rate, the lower the liability. So for example, there's one town on here, the town of Wilton, they're over 100% funded, but that's at a 6.875% rate of return. If we were to look at that at say 6.625, like the town of New Canaan uses, that 102% would certainly come down. So it's important to just know what assumption is being used when you look at those funded percentages.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions, or we can move quickly to the OPEB?
Move to the OPEB.
Did you want to go over slide 14?
Sure. All right. The setup is the same for the executive summary. We've got the counts at the top. You also take advantage of an interim valuation on the OPEB side. So we're going to be refreshing the data again in 2024. If you take the actives who will be due a future benefit if they desire, plus the actual retired, you have 734 people in the plan. The plan in 2022 started using the actuarial value of assets. They got to a level where there's enough in the trust that we all felt that you could take advantage of the 5-year rolling smoothing to kind of offset the gains and losses and get something more smooth each year. The plan is currently underfunded by 2.5 million. Very high funded ratio for Connecticut at 89.4%. And then the ADEC is 940,000, and we can go into more detail on the next page if you'd like. So, once again, this is gonna look very similar to the pension plan. I guess there's two differences here. The plan doesn't currently pay, or they, as of July 1st, 2023, they did not pay admin expenses out of the trust. So, there's not a line for that in the normal cost. And in addition, there's gonna be something related to expected benefit payments I'll mention at the end. So the gross normal cost, that's the piece of the liability that's expected to increase over the next 12 months. It's going to be offset by what employees pay towards the plan to come up with your town normal cost of $678,000. In addition, since the plan is currently 2.5% underfunded, that's going to be amortized to get the amortization of unfunded, which is currently 213,000. And then that gets added to 800, it adds up to the 891,000. Once again, that's a number as of the valuation date. So there's going to be an adjustment for interest and inflation, which gets you to your 941,000. In comparison to that, we've come up with what the expected benefit payments are over those 12 months. Which is 1.22 million. And we can explain that in more detail if you'd like. Kind of went through a lot of numbers there.
No, that's good. I mean, maybe the next page is interesting as well, just to, I'm not sure everybody understands what a 90% funded what that really means.
Right, yeah, so we had talked about how the plan is close to 100% funded, but not quite there. But to put that into context, only 47, and this data is as of 2022. We'll update this later in the summer to more recent data, but as of 2022, only 47% of OPEB plans in the state of Connecticut even had a trust. The municipalities operate on a pay-as-you-go basis. There is no trust backing those liabilities. Of the ones that do have a trust and are funded, the average funded percent is 43.1%. So at your 89%, and that was as of 2023, we'll update that coming up later this year, you are well above average on the OPEB funded side of things. And we talked a little bit about, you know, when is the right time to use that trust and start paying benefits out of it, because that's really what you set it up for. And given the funded percent, given the expected level of benefit payments, we had said now is probably the time. And we just learned that the town does intend to start using that trust going forward. So any questions?
I assume you get yearly census from the town?
We collect it every other year.
Every
So,
other year.
in even years, yes.
So
So
this
we'll collect
year-
it this year.
Okay, good.
So they do evaluation every year, but on the off years, they only update the asset valuation, but they use the same kind of census and other employee and beneficiary kind of data.
Yes. Yep.
So we were PAYGO while we built up the fund. Is that the general idea? And now we're going to start paying benefits from the trust? Is that, because it says we should consider, but I thought you said we are going to.
Ann can answer that.
Yeah.
Yes, because the claims are higher, and the town cleaned that in. Our current 25 budget is gonna have we reduced the contribution by 300,000 in medical. We're gonna pull 300,000 out of the trust to cover the retirees. And we're looking right now at, we've budgeted a small part in fiscal year 24 as well, because we paid more claims than the ADAC. So we're looking at about 100 something in this year.
Can you conclude that our pension, if we didn't have a fund, we'd have a fixed cost pension of 1.9 million? That was the normal, that would have been the cost for the year? What would be the cost have been? What's the annual cost?
Yeah, so if your fund was exactly 100% funded, I think that's what.
It would be 1.9 million.
it
And by
would
being
be-
overfunded, we reduced that, that's a fixed cost yearly
Yes,
to this
so
town.
1.9.
You could not pay it and not fund the pension, but that's not, obviously, that's not how we run it.
Right.
It would be 1.9 million. We're paying 500,000, so being overfunded has reduced our expense 80%.
Right.
So that, a couple of good years, we could almost get to not having much, if any, additional expense.
Couple bad years.
It's a couple bad years, well, that's the point, right? That's
Be
why,
that guy.
a couple of bad years, well, a couple of bad years knocked us down to 106, right? That was the whole, that was the, right, 108?
106 is the.
106 or 108 was the low, was the.
One
low,
one
yeah.
oh six was related to the CAFR, so that's on a market
Yeah.
value of asset basis.
So, anyway,
And so then.
I'm just saying, those funds
Yeah.
matter. It really helps us reduce, and obviously, all of our
Mhm.
risks, everything else, but also our
But-
fixed costs.
But if that is a desired outcome, then it begs the question kind of like, on this chart of our peers, we have Darien, who is using 6.25% discount rate, and they're at 98%, 99%. Why wouldn't they use a higher returns to have to get the same benefit we are? Why would they, in their case, let's say, having to pay the $1.9 million, when they could go over 100% and pay less than $1.9 million? And if that's true, then it really is in spades for Greenwich, which is only at 6%. So why wouldn't the towns increase the discount rate in order to reduce the amount they have to pay every year into the pension?
So the discount rate needs to be what they could realistically achieve in their fund. If it's not a realistic number, say they're using something 8, 9%, well, their funded percentage is gonna look incredible. They're gonna be probably well over 100%. They're not gonna
Yes,
put money
yeah.
into
And
the
then you have
plan.
the state of Connecticut as a result.
Yeah, but they could come up to 6.6 like we do, right? And
They would go over
and their-
100%.
and their numbers would look better.
That's the point.
Well,
Well, that's, but then you're answering the question. Who knows what their fund is
Yeah, you don't
consists of?
Well,
You don't.
Yeah.
That's
it's all
the
fixed
reasonable
income.
expectation of
Yeah,
their
maybe
fund.
it's all
Right,
fixed
I mean,
income.
They're
yeah,
smart
it's-
people. I'm sure they're doing, they know what they're doing.
yeah, but a lot of factors go into that. And one of the things is their asset mix, their target allocations.
You never know.
And it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Nope.
Question on that assumption. Am I supposed to look at that as a nominal rate or a real return? I assume it's nominal.
It's nominal.
yeah.
Okay, so with inflation and rates having moved as dramatically as they have, I understand all the pressure to pull these down into the sixes. Wasn't too long ago that a lot of people were in the eights. I mean, there's an argument that, yeah, Greenwich really is too low at 6. I mean, you can earn a year T-bill right now, 5.25. So.
I thought you were
Anyway,
going, I
as
thought you
long
were
as-
going to, why don't we raise our up an 8?
No, well, I mean, that's up to the committee, and you certainly, I feel really comfortable that, that we're in the middle of the pack. I think the pack seems low based on the way the world has evolved over the
Yeah,
last
this is
couple of years.
also 2 years.
Couple years old.
Oh,
Couple years ago.
well, there you
No,
go.
Tom makes a good point.
Maybe they've all moved.
We had a window to lower and so did
Maybe they
everybody
haven't.
else. And everyone took it down a little to be conservative with the expected return.
Yeah, I think so, because, look, at the end of the day, you don't want to be raising it for the wrong reasons. You don't want to be pulling it down when, sentiments are like, well, what are you doing? Right. So, I mean, the idea is if you can see an opportunity to trim it a little bit and you're going to be able to get yourself to a number then that's pretty stable, you're not going to have a lot of pressure to move it one way or another, then the rest of the budgeted obligations of our oversight is going to be driven by the real factors, which is what are the mortality tables telling us? What are the investment markets telling us? How does that all come out in the wash? It seems to me
That's right.
that's how to strike the balance, it seems.
Any other questions? Anything else from you both? Thank you so much.
All right, well,
I
thank
appreciate
you
it.
all.
Thanks
When
for
do
having
we
us.
have a review of from the fund and the investment and returns?
Well, so we have a new advisor on board. We have to get them all up to speed. And so I think the RPAC will be meeting with them, as soon as they kind of engage.
July?
I wouldn't say July, because we're literally, yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
would
going to
say-
be more
okay.
post Labor Day.
Yeah, we just
Okay.
have to transfer,
September?
we still haven't transferred
They're on
assets.
today, if you want.
Okay,
Oh.
well, pin them down. You want to be, they can come in June if they want, but
Yeah, no,
Se-
they won't even
September's
have
fine.
the assets by that point.
you got it. September's fine. That's fine. Great. That's the other side of the equation. Okay. Thank you. Let's move on to Bill, Police Department update. I have multiple months of updates in my,
All your microphones are on, correct?
Oh, you got that, right?
of course.
Yeah.
I
It's hard to read all that.
It was a fine
little
print.
small now.
I
Nobody's
know,
trying to hide
I know,
something.
and I'm not even gonna talk to him, don't worry. Before we get, before we get started, I'd like to take every opportunity to thank our construction site neighbors because they've been very patient, especially the EMTs. They've been very willing to work with us. They've been very patient and they really deserve a shout out as well as Turner has been managing the construction site. They've done an amazing job. Let's face it, it is an inconvenience for our neighbors, especially the EMTs, when we were sharing a driveway there. And so I really like to thank them. So really, we don't have much in the way of major changes since our last update in February. First, scheduling, really no major change, right? Construction we expect to be done in the winter of 2025, and we still expect to be moving the police force back into a new building in the fall of 2025. There's no change to that. If you wanted to look at Turner's best case construction scenario, sure, has that slipped a few weeks? Of course it has, but that's like saying I'm going to shoot a 75 tomorrow because I shot a 75 once in my life. I mean, nobody really believes that. So, yeah, we're really on track. No change in the scheduling. As far as dollars are concerned, just a quick review on the rough numbers, right? So, $23 million is construction plus professional services, architect, owner's rep, other design features, things like that. $2 million is the cost of the move and the temporary space, you know, to move the police in and out and to pay their rent. $2 million is soft costs, software, furniture, AV, things like that, and $2 million in contingency. So we should talk about the contingency and where we were in February and where we are now. In February, we were, well, let's say we're where we are now. We believe that with the best visibility we have, not all these expenses have been approved yet by the committee, but we certainly have visibility, and I'd rather give you the worst case of everything we've seen. So of the 1.9 million in town contingency, we've spent probably 680,000, leaving us about 1.2 million in town contingency, which is really pretty good. The construction manager, Turner, also maintains a contingency there, which they would return to us if they don't spend it. They started at 700,000 and they're about 666 right now. So where have we spent our money on the contingency so far? Some of the things we knew about in February, that would be the temporary cell at the temporary police station, right? That set us back about $230,000. We had some asbestos and things like that in one of the bathrooms and things you would call it things you would expect in a 100-year-old building. You know you're going to find things like that. We had some upgrades to some, windows. We had an upgrade to a light fixture. We had, things like that. Put them all together, call it another 100. The things that haven't been paid for yet, but we have visibility of spending, $100,000, actually $93,000 for moving a support beam, a foundation. So in the end, reality did not jibe with the drawing that was generated in 1928. And again, I don't think any of us are surprised that a few things happened. Why the beam that the support beam that on the drawing says is going to be 12 feet turns out to be 9 feet with a 3-foot ring of concrete around it that we didn't think was there. Who knows? Maybe in 1928, the beam was delivered 3 feet short. The guy said it's Friday afternoon. We're going to pour more concrete. We're out of here. We really don't know. But the bummer to us is that it cost us $93,000. And by the way, 2 weeks of time to figure out how to work around that. Is a very important beam, basically holds up the back of the building. It was between where the back of the old building and the part that we tore down. So actually, Deanna saw it 2 weeks ago as well. You sort of see it like a beacon, and it is what it is. I call that a typical
snap or typical problem that you would see in 100, dealing with a 100-year-old building. The other new thing, which hasn't been paid for, but certainly a visibility on an expense, but it's currently being negotiated. So I can't get into too much detail about it, but again, windows, what we want isn't necessarily is what is there. Everyone is doing their appropriate positioning. Do we think it's going to cost the town some money? We think it's going to cost the town some money. Is it going to cost other people money? Probably cost some other people money as well. How much? Who knows? We'll put in a worst case. We'll throw in 150,000 for the, because the last thing we want to do is underestimate future expenses. So that gets us to roughly 700,000, a little less actually, of contingency spent by the town out of our 1.9 million contingency. Do we think we've gone through a period of construction where we're not as likely to see contingency, things hitting us in the head? Yeah, but that doesn't mean it won't happen, right? We still have some excavation work to do behind the building to pour the foundations for the addition. We could turn up some soil there that needs remediation or what have you, who knows? But there are things that certainly can still go wrong. But from a overall plan perspective, I mean, this project is funded at 29 million, and last thing I want to do is come groveling back to the town bodies for more money. We hope to hand you guys a check for unspent money. I guess a figure, not a literal check, but when this whole thing is said and done. And right now, I can look in the eye and say, well, it's more likely than not. But we're in a fairly good place.
Can I just ask a question? I know these things aren't necessarily related in a linear
Yeah.
way, but you described that you're about a third of the way through the contingency, right?
Yeah, yeah. Through our contingency, Turner still has a
So
contingency.
what percentage are you in terms of the overall construction project? Are you 25% of the way there, 40% of the way? How much has that progressed?
Yeah, I'd say, I'm making this number up now.
You were 10% in February.
I'd say it's less than a third, less than a third. 20 to 25 is probably
Based upon time.
a good estimate. But like I said, now, a lot of the work is, other than, you're building a new building from scratch.
Right.
So that's not, other than finding some bad dirt, you're not likely to come up with a problem there, or not as likely. And then you're sheet rocking and doing all kinds of things, put in the plumbing and things like that into the structure that's already been reinforced and updated. So you're not as likely to have things there. So, yes, we've spent a third, we're less than a third through the project, but the work ahead of us is less likely to have a contingency issue.
For sure, the risk of unknowables is kind of going to approach zero at some point, right?
Yeah.
So then the contingency remains for what are the inevitable
Mhm.
mistakes or mix-ups, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So the 25% estimate is based on effort, not cost.
Mhm.
Correct.
Great,
Right.
yes.
And do you have that number somewhere, how much cost has been spent of the budget?
I do, but not in front of me. I'm sure I could find it. In fact, our owner's rep puts that number out. And I will certainly have that, and I can email that.
It'd be good, I think, for us in general to see not only
Yep.
contingency, we have spent this much,
Mhm.
but what's the percent complete for effort
Mhm.
and then cost, to always have that.
Mhm.
And then to also know what is your latest estimate to complete?
For the actual construction.
Yes, how much is left? So
Yeah,
you
yeah.
budgeted X,
Mhm.
is that a good number still,
Mhm.
or did that
Yes.
change?
Yes, yeah. We do get that at our bi-weekly meeting coming up or not, every other week
Right.
meeting. So I'll have it on Thursday.
Lives and dies by that.
Yeah,
so-
they have it all. They have it all. So,
We can certainly ask them those three questions and then, write it all back to the board.
Yep.
So.
yeah, give you those specific numbers.
I'm looking at the March construction report.
Yeah.
And it says, according to this lower left-hand corner, you haven't completed the underground utilities on the start lower level renovation.
Mhm.
Was that done? Has that been done since this March report was written?
I believe so. Again, they were put back a little bit on some of that work. And then they were making up, doing other things instead. But I'd have to look at the April
So,
to
I guess if
tell you
you're not
exactly.
Well,
Sure.
technically, the lower renovation, we aren't at present, because that's actually where, what Bill was talking about as far as these two columns that are in the way, right? So they're actually coming up out of the ground inside the locker rooms, if you will, all right? So to Bill's point, the column itself, we don't know why the footing itself is 3 feet higher than what was originally shown on the plans, if you will, from 1920s.
Mhm.
Unfortunate thing is below ground, so we couldn't see it. We were lowering that level of that area to put in the locker rooms for both the men's and the women's, and it's there. So that's what. So no, that if you're asking about, we were supposed to have that completed on the projected was 4/7/24.
Yeah.
That's where our delay is right
Right.
there in that
So
right
Are you
there.
gonna be able to catch up on the lower level renovation? and get
Part of that is
on
on the,
completion
part of
of the
that's on the
project?
critical path, all right? So that is actually on the critical path. So it's kind of forcing us to creep somewhat. So if you look at, the overall project substantial completion on the bottom line, we had December 13 of 24. That's creeped a little bit by about 2 to 3 weeks on 110. They're being a little bit generous on that
Mhm.
110, if you will, 110 of 25,
Mhm.
just to put in the fact of exactly, they're able to work on other areas around it, if you will. It's just, we need to get this out of the way. Now we have a path forward. We have we approved the change order a couple of days ago, maybe late last week,
Right.
if you will, I think Friday. And they're proceeding forward. They've got
Mhm.
direction. The structural engineers have told them exactly what needs to be done. The unfortunate thing is those two columns hold up the entire back of the building. So we couldn't do anything without satisfying those. Nick was there, Deanna was there. We can't do anything without actually bracing the entire back and then removing those columns, lowering the footings and placing it back in again, and then starting over, if you will. So there is a little bit of creep, about 2 to 3 weeks on that critical path, but they've been able to perform other work working around us. They haven't been in a standstill, if you will. So there's a little bit of movement on the overall schedule itself, but we think that they'll be able to make up some of that time back.
And again, we know Turner's construction schedule, but as a community, we're not necessarily planning to that. We're planning that things will happen, that Turner, things will, force the construction to slip a bit. And that's as expected,
And
frankly.
if you look at the overall schedule, if you look at those milestones that were written in that schedule, between the target and the projected and the actual, we're actually been ahead of schedule, if you will. So on each one of those items so far, between what they had targeted and projected and the actual, we actually were ahead of schedule. This didn't help us,
No.
so we were gaining time and then we kind of lost a little bit of time. We're hoping that once we get these out of the way, we'll gain time again and move through it. And then that overall projected completion date that substantial completion date will come back closer to January 1, if you will, by about a week or a little bit over a week.
But then it's going to be a lot of time to
Right.
actually have this
Yeah.
new station operational.
So, yeah,
Hey, Bill and Tiger, refresh my memory. What's the nature of this contract? Is it
it's a
with
guaranteed
Turner?
maximum price.
Guaranteed
CMP.
maximum price,
Right.
23 million.
It's
well,
20. It's actually
theirs
20.
is 20,235.
Yeah,
Sorry,
2235, yeah.
So on the contingency of 2 million is really on 9 million. It's really on 7 million.
Well, if there are unforeseen conditions on their side that weren't in the plan set, that 2 million does apply towards their guaranteed maximum price. That's correct. They have a certain amount of contingency on their side.
Right,
Well,
700,000,
700,000.
which we
But
went
if
through
there are
35.
unforeseen things that they didn't have in the plan set, that necessarily,
Well, that's hardly a guaranteed max. I mean,
well, it is
Yeah.
to a point, they're saying that whatever's on the plan set and whatever is there in front of them, gonna give you everything you can, but there is a point where these columns weren't listed on the plan set. That's a $95,000 change in a couple of weeks for them. That matters, if you will.
Yeah.
So
was big.
that'll creep a little bit.
Yeah, that's gonna come out of our contingency and not theirs.
That's correct.
Yes.
Their contingency
That's
is
the way
based
it would
upon
work, yeah.
Yes.
how they keep on schedule, if they need to do certain things in order to kind of
Mhm.
push a contractor along to stay
Yeah,
on
you
their
have-
schedule.
yeah,
their
you have-
predicted
you
schedule.
But
have-
everything's being
you have the
negotiated. We're
owner's
not letting everyone off the hook yet.
Yeah, no, you've got the the builder's contingency and you've got the owner's contingency.
Correct.
Mhm.
Right.
How often does the building committee meet?
Every other week.
Every other way.
And you have, I presume the contractors there, the architects, and you go through all these.
And our
numbers,
owner's rep,
the owner's
Slab,
rep,
right?
And you go through all these numbers and they
Yes.
give you percentage of completion, what they're
Right.
working on that.
Right. That's why I don't
problems.
want to give you a number because I know I'm going to have the exact number on Thursday. Yeah.
Okay,
Then we review every potential change order, anything that they see out there,
yeah.
anything that's.
And they
in
tell you how
play,
much they're gonna
anything's been
build the
approved.
next cycle and so
Mhm.
on.
Correct.
Okay.
They give us a 2-week look ahead as to where they're going to be headed and where they've been. So it's a
Mhm.
2-week look
No.
behind, 2-week look ahead, and then we'll know. And then we address concerns that they see coming forward, you know, that.
Yeah,
that
and
are
when they
in-
have a draw for money that goes back to the town and we pay it.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Well, let's say they have accrued bills and they say, okay, now for the next 2 weeks, you owe us $1.7 million.
Well, there's a monthly estimate that comes forward.
Yeah.
That's approved by SLAM, who's our owner's rep, by Joe Zagorinsky, our
Right.
senior engineer, who's our project manager on that job, and then by Bill as well. And then it goes up to Ann. from
Yeah,
finance.
okay.
So
When's
there's
your next
several looks
meeting?
at it.
Is this Thursday?
I'm sorry, what?
Your next meeting's this
Thursday.
Thursday?
Yep, this Thursday morning.
Okay, good. So at Thursday morning after that, could you send us, and maybe, is it okay? if you
Yeah,
Send it
yeah.
to you, Tucker, you get it to all of us?
Yeah, those percentage numbers. Yeah.
Percent of
Yes.
effort, percent of money spent.
Mhm.
Can the remaining work, I think your question was, can the remaining work be done for the money that's left? I think that was the
Right.
question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, those are excellent questions. Yeah, we'll have those.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would be
The
good.
reports show it, but again, I didn't want to give a number that I
No,
know
it's
is going to be
Thursday's
updated.
Thursday, it's fine.
Right.
That's what's
Yeah.
absolutely fine.
And we will offer that every Wednesday, we walk that project with Turner. So if you'd like to, Nick availed himself of that. Tiana comes about every couple of weeks
Mhm.
when she can. So if anyone would like to, we'll give you a hard hat and a vest and
Okay.
safety glasses.
No, we'll do
8
that.
o'clock Wednesday morning.
Bill, I
Tomorrow
can't
morning we'll be
recall,
taking a
is there a
walk.
Board of Finance rep on the building committee?
Yes,
Yes, Michael Chen
right.
That's right.
And Amy was on it.
and Amy was on.
And then she had a,
And she
Mhm.
ditched us.
Mhm.
She did, let's be honest, she left us.
But she's not on the police building committee anymore
No.
either.
Oh, gee,
Right.
just you guys too. Just kidding. Should you be on it? Would you want to?
I'd love to.
I think it would be great if you could be on it, if
Sure.
you've got some
You can change
time. I
that.
know you
Mhm.
can't be here every Wednesday or anything.
Right? Selectman's office
Yeah,
could do
maybe.
that for us. We'd love to have you. Nick.
So would that be okay?
That's every other Wednesday.
Yeah.
so.
once every other Thursday. We
Thursday.
walk every
Thursday's the meeting.
Wednesday.
Thursday's the meeting. I was just thinking
Thursday.
Wednesday.
Wednesdays we walk.
We do the walk.
Wednesday's
and
the walk through
obviously-
Thursday mornings at 8.
Yeah, Nick, if you'd be all right with that, I think the committee's fine with that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that'd be good.
Bob, yeah, okay, great.
It's a Zoom capable meeting. So if you can't be present, you can be on, you know.
You're talking about the Thursday meeting?
Thursday
Yeah,
meeting,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
The Wednesday's open to anyone on the board that wants to take a walk. Just let
Nick,
us
I think
know.
that'd be great.
Let you know.
That would be great. How'd the temporary space working out?
When you talk to the policemen on the street, they'll say, parking could be better. You'd hear the typical complaints about it's a little tight and it's temporary. I get it all. We all get it. But by and large, the most important thing, there hasn't been any safety compromises. I mean, that's the most important thing. Police, they're not here, but when we ask them every meeting, there have been no safety compromises because of the temporary, and that's the most important thing. Parking is getting, as people have been there longer, it's getting, people are finding their way to deal with the parking issues, and everything else has been pretty good.
Colm, any questions? Jan, Bob?
No, thanks. Good presentation, Bill. Thank you.
Anything else? Team? All right. Bill, thank you.
Nope, thank you, guys.
Appreciate the update. Thanks for doing that. We'll do it again
Thanks,
in July or September, something like that. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, 2 months? You know, the
Yeah,
last
it
2
doesn't,
months?
nothing, not June. June's gonna be too busy with the
Okay, that's fine.
fun stuff. All right, Playhouse Theater update.
Okay. Well, thank you. So I had a meeting this morning, early this afternoon with Alden Bailey and Bill Ostman, our project manager. And we made some good progress over the past, I think it was the last time I was here was a month ago, I believe 2 months ago. not quite certain. We are still on track for June 21. You know, a couple of caveats as far as whether or not a couple of pieces of equipment show. Good thing is that the front doors and the soundproof doors that were supposed to go at
The doors arrived?
not yet,
Oh, okay.
but they were supposed to ship June 1, come here June 10. They're shipping on May 14.
Oh.
So if they stick with that same schedule, we'll be a
Okay.
couple of weeks ahead of schedule, which is a very, very good thing in that regard.
Excellent.
The cabinetry for the concession has arrived. The cabinetry for the upper bar will arrive next week. That's not a concern as far as that goes, because we're still working on the upper floor, putting up the flooring there. So the bar up, like I said, the bar upstairs we received next week. We'll start on the flooring upstairs, on the entire floor upstairs on Monday. We're finishing the taping and painting upstairs this week in anticipation of the flooring coming. EOMAC, which is the soundproofing, has finished Theater 1, the left-hand side theater, and is working on Theater 2, the right-hand side theater. And they're slated to be done by the end of this week, if not early next week, which is pretty close to what they were on schedule. They were slated to finish on Friday, would be directly on time. One extra day puts them a little bit over. But they are working 7 days a week to try to make that happen and get in and get out. They can't find an Irish pub in the area, so they want to.
Yeah, anybody knows a great Irish pub.
If anyone knows
I-
a great Irish pub,
they're-
they would like it. They're from across the pond, so they were looking for something here.
Not sure that would
Right.
qualify.
So, right.
Stanford, depends on the night.
Pretty good one,
Exactly.
Stanford.
So as far as the bathrooms go, one bathroom is completely tiled, the floor tile and the wall tile completely done, ready for fixtures. And the other one, floor tile, is completed. We just need to seal it, grout it, seal it, and then we can start putting the wall tile and then the fixtures there. So we're on time for both of those, and the concession tile will start tomorrow. And then next week, they'll go across the hallway to the bar and start the bar tile at that point in time. And then they'll be able to build from there with the cabinetry and what have you. So there's not anything outside of a couple of pieces of equipment that have to arrive. We're looking at a couple of fans, exhaust fans that we need that unfortunately we're having difficulty acquiring, but we don't feel that this is going to be a problem overall before the end of the project. And the contractor is trending much towards yes than no, if you will, when you ask him, are you going to make your schedule on June 21? Today was the first time I got more of a yes than a no. So that was actually a very good discussion, if
Seats?
you will. Seats will be once we finish the flooring, but the seats are here.
The
You know,
seats
they're
are
being
here.
stored.
Okay.
Yeah, they're being stored
I don't think
off-site.
they were here when I went with you.
No, they're
They were- yeah, yeah.
they're being stored elsewhere.
Yep.
So they're being stored. Castor Moving has those
Okay.
in their facility.
Okay.
They've been here for a little
that'll
while. We wanted
happen.
to get them here,
Yeah,
so
yeah, right.
we actually sistered with the Board of Ed.
Right.
So that came in with the
Which is tonight, by the way, right? The opening's tonight.
right. So those seats were very, same manufacturer.
Super
So
comfortable.
we have them. Once the flooring is done, then the seats will go in. So we're actually ahead of the game on
Okay,
that.
that's good.
And that's
What keeps us from opening? Anything that's not done or here that keeps us from opening? Furniture, fans, or anything with from a
doors
CO,
themselves,
electrical?
right. The doors themselves, the
doors.
upper concession, not necessarily a concern, because if we had to close off that upper concession, we could get the bottom floor open, if you will. We are looking at trying to transition COs as far as CO, the two theaters, say that those are good. So we're working with the fire marshal and the building official to give us COs for those two, and then work our way out, if you will. And if we have to cut off some portion of the upper floor and focus on the bottom, we get the bottom done. But the point of the matter is really that's the doors themselves. The rest of it is here, if you will, on site, except for those two fans. But I think we can find those. We're just having difficulty
Okay.
at present.
Other questions? Do we have a movie? Do we know what the movie's
I
gonna be?
don't have that yet.
Surprise?
That's
Okay.
I'm just worried
What
about getting the
about-
doors open.
Is the theater just specifically for motion pictures, or can it be used for other purposes as well?
It's specifically for motion pictures, but they were looking at having guest artists come in and have, certain things of that nature.
Yeah, like
running as well.
bands and stuff?
No bands.
There's no
It's
stage,
no
right?
stage,
There's no
so it's
stage.
just, yeah, we can, right. Yeah, if you had the producer came in to talk about the movie or an actor came in to talk about the movie, but no theater, no theatrical performances, if you will.
The
Right.
upstairs, Victor, can be used for all kinds of entertainment.
Yeah, any type of event space. It's a
Very
very
nice.
open area.
65
So Victor,
capacity.
you did a tour. Any thoughts? What was your reaction?
It was the first time, so I was telling
Nick,
Mhm.
sorry.
Right.
Yeah,
Victor's just-
Tiger
I'll get
that
it.
I have to
It's been a long day.
see it a few more times to see the progress. But so far, I think everything is there except the doors.
Mhm.
All the equipment from the data room is there in storage. So I felt pretty good about it. We have 6 weeks to go.
Right. So you got a baseline, so then we'll,
I'm there
exact same
every
thing.
other day,
Right.
and they know I'm there. every
She's
day.
there every other day. Not just because she's wearing red, but she makes sure that they know that she's there every other day.
Excellent.
But if any, again, if anyone wants to take a walk, we'll give you a tour
Good, no,
after
thanks
hours,
for that.
if you will, just because we don't
I
wanna
recommend it.
disturb it.
I'm glad to hear that the tiles, right, in the bathrooms
Yeah.
was a problem.
Right.
The small tiles.
Yeah.
On Friday, the women's bathroom was like 1/8 done.
Mhm.
And
It's
to
done
hear that
today.
it's done now, it's fantastic.
It's done today.
Wow.
The floor, not the
Correct,
walls.
not the walls.
But the walls
floor.
in the men's is up.
That's correct.
It's fully up.
Right. So we're looking at fixtures on that side, finish the tiling on the other side, on the women's side, and then start fixtures on that, and then start bringing in the partitions and things of that nature. But,
Probably want you to come back in June for the
Sure.
June 11th meeting. It's close to opening, so we should get a real, hopefully the final
mhm.
update.
Right, if there's something, God forbid, something happens. we'll
And have
let you
Nick
know.
maybe in the gang here to just go give us an update.
We can,
Yeah,
we
let's
can
do
have,
that.
we can have the whole crew come in if
I
you
would-
want at that point in time,
Yep.
Yeah,
That would be good.
take the
Okay.
onus.
Any other questions? All right, Tiger, thank you.
Thank you
Great
very much.
progress
Yeah.
on both fronts there. I was a little nervous about both of them.
Appreciation week.
For Appreciation Week.
Appreciation week, yeah.
All right, Josh and Ann. Put my financials. There we go. Yeah, perfect.
It's as big as I can go.
Let's go to Revs first. You can go a little bigger, or, I mean, I got a hard copy, but maybe for others.
I can. That's as much as I can.
Okay,
go
that's
without.
fine.
There we are.
Everybody has it.
Right, so in front of you and on your tablets, you have the year-to-date financials as of April 30th. Starting on the revenue side, the overall revenue is at 100.28%, about 450,000 over what was budgeted, which is pretty much on pace with what we were at last year at this time. I think we were at about 500,000 or so over. Starting at the top, tax collections are at 101.04%, 1.5-ish million over the 150 million budgeted. A little bit slower than last year by about 200,000 or so. On to building permits are at about 90% of what was budgeted. We're adding on about 100,000 per month or so of the 850,000 that was budgeted.
Okay, this is through April, so will we beat that number?
Let's see, well, we have 85,000 to go. I would expect that we will.
Yes.
Yeah, at 100
By
a
a
month.
little bit.
They're
right?
starting to come up, seeing when we're
Two
loading up
good
the
months, May
information.
and June.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a winner.
Conveyance fees are at almost 80% of what was budgeted. There's about 300,000 left of the 1.5 million. We're trailing last year by about 155,000.
And thoughts?
That's also been going up about, I think, 120 since last month.
So the next 2 months are usually
Good
the ones we
months.
never,
Things
right,
are for sale, so
yeah,
any thoughts on that? There are things on the market, so there should be
they're still
some,
moving.
there's
yeah.
demand and there's volume, so we should be.
Right.
Thank you, all right.
It'll be close.
Well, you
but-
need to add 314,472,
Two.
please. So. All right.
Down to parking is at 77%.
I'm sorry, all kidding aside, you think we'll get
I think
conveyance?
it'll
We'll be
I
within,
think it'll be pretty close.
we'll be there. Okay, that's
Probably
important.
within 50,000.
We were concerned we might miss
Up or
that, and
down.
if we're in
No, I
the
think-
hunt, that sounds good. Okay, good.
Parking is at 77% of what was budgeted. I know parking revenue for April for meters and pay by phone haven't been booked in this number, which adds another 35,000 on top of the 717,000. So that probably pushes it pretty much on pace with where we were last year,
Okay.
and probably closer over 80% or so of what was budgeted. Interest on investments, of course, is doing well. 1.3 million of the 900,000, or 144%.
Any estimate on that? 2 months to go?
Well, we're gonna start drawing down. So I know it's not what you want to hear. So we put this extra 20 million out, but it can only stay out for a period of time because I need it back end of May and June to cover.
Need it back.
I want it back. I tell Andrew I need it, that's a time period.
That's
Then
pretty
come
good, though.
July again, we'll put that extra 20 back out and we'll need it by November. So that's a 20 that'll keep going out and back. The other 40 is out there constantly.
Okay, but another 100 to this number?
Maybe. I'm not sure if we'll hit that.
Okay,
We may.
it's a great result, to be honest, but
Just following that, tipping fees are at about 66%, trailing last year by about 47,000.
same thing, will we get there?
I don't know.
We just raised those
I'm not sure with
rates.
tipping. That's,
Yeah.
Why don't we just raise the rates?
I don't know if they were effective, though.
do we know?
I think it's just slowed a bit.
It's right now, yeah, as we're seeing the revenue come in, it's slowed down a bit, but we'll get to, I'll check with the department head to see if
Okay.
he thinks there's anything gonna change, but,
Okay, well,
not sure
look,
how far.
it's interesting today, it's really important in June. I mean, as everybody knows, all we're trying to do is run up as big a surplus as we can, basically to pay down, give it back to the taxpayers. So it's, I'm not asking for anything other than we hope to, give it back to the taxpayers, so every dollar counts. So I'd be curious as to why that would be off.
Yep.
Okay.
Excess cost from BOE is we're waiting for the second payment in June.
Well,
any
we just
insights
got
on
one
that?
in, the first week of May,
Oh,
we just
so-
got,
yeah,
we just
sorry.
got it. We're not gonna hit the 5, we didn't get the full amount.
You say
So
5, it says
500,000.
578.
Oh, the variance, sorry. I
Yeah.
look at the variance. So we're not gonna hit the budget of 1 million. They're not gonna get it. And they're
Well, how much are they gonna miss by?
I think it was like 200,000. Yeah.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
No, that
They're
is
redesigning,
good.
they're actually in the midst of redesigning the calculations on this too.
I'm sure they are.
For
So,
the second time.
yeah, I mean,
Will
we
ours
only
likely
get
go up
70,
When
75%
they're done with that
anyway.
redesign, just
Yeah.
asking for,
We'll probably, yeah,
Phoning for a friend.
yep,
that hurts.
it does.
That hurts. Okay.
And other revenue right now, it's just sitting at 100%.
Well, every dollar we get just adds to the surplus, to the I mean, we're positive today through April, so, okay, all right. On the expense?
The expense
Anything
side,
to could be concerned about is really the question.
on the expense side of things, no, we're at 78.2. Last year, we were at 78.7. It's pretty much the same pace. I don't
There's
think there's
nothing-
anything really to be concerned about right now. We've used a little bit of contingency, but still have,
We've been looking more at, so you'll see it in, it's in this budget transfer, right?
Yep.
So we don't budget for storms. So, highway unfortunately the storms we did actually have happened on the weekend. So it was,
Sundays.
time and a half or
not
double
one-
time,
Not even time and a half,
Yeah.
double time.
double time.
Yeah,
So
even Saturday.
they're running up against now their budget for opening up for spring and getting ready for
Okay.
fall or the summer and everything. They're running up now against their budget. So you're gonna see some transfers coming in to cover from those storms.
From contingency?
That you will, it'll start coming from contingency, which we do have some funds in there.
Okay.
And the Board of Ed, 25% still to spend, that's just timing, right? Because they have that huge payment in June.
The balloon payment, yeah,
Yeah.
they're preparing that right now to get that ready.
any other questions on these?
Any ballpark estimate on the expense side?
Expense side, we definitely know we have the debt we did not bond for. So that's a $600,000 savings we know we have.
Okay.
Anything above that then is going to be if we have some positions if I have to ballpark, gonna be maybe 800 in total.
Okay.
I think Josh and I are gonna meet actually Thursday. We're gonna drill down into all the nitty gritties of everything, salary lines, look for departments to tell us what they feel their overtime, because that's the unknown for us. Salaries, we know, the unknown is the overtime to cover the next 4 weeks. We'll be asking all the departments to get, again, it's 4 to 6 weeks. You should know what you need other than emergencies by the end of June, get those encumbrances, get those numbers in, so that will help us get a better estimate. Revenues, I think, conservative again, 2 million right now.
Oh, you made my day. I
well,
just added it up in my head and I'm not gonna tell you what I'm not gonna tell you what I came up with now.
Okay, then I should have gone lower. Should have set a better expectation. Well, just going,
Right, Tucker, just checking.
just going through some of these numbers on
2
it,
million.
I'm thinking we have that.
Okay, so maybe 3 million net-ish, close.
2.5.
Okay, that's
I'm
important.
gonna say
That's good.
2.5 now.
Okay, all right, too late,
I'm conservative.
too late. 800, I heard 800 on revenue, or on expenses. Okay, other questions? Yeah. Victor.
Question for Deanna. So in your update, you said you were making changes to the parking meters.
Well, we haven't, it has to go through parking commission. I'm socializing it. So it's been to a lot of the different organizations in town. So I did the Exchange Club, the Men's Club. I went to the parking commission. It made the press.
We're having a merchant meeting.
Yep, and we're having a merchant, I talked to Laura about it, about socializing it with the merchants. It doesn't make sense that we have our most valuable parking is free and our least valuable is paid.
So what is the earliest that we could implement that change?
We're gonna have to get, machines, we're gonna have to evaluate the cost of the machines. I don't, that probably is gonna be a budget implication, so, we'll have to figure out, sort of, it might have to go through next budget cycle is my guess. Because I'm not sure we can repurpose it'd be nice if we could just take the Park Street stuff and bring it over to Elm Street, but I don't think that's how it's gonna work. So, there's gonna be some planning that needs to happen in advance of it, but.
Because our parking revenue in the 25
I think it could help
budget-
that. I mean, I wouldn't do it without making like Park Street or something free. I want to encourage people to park further away if, to help relieve some congestion. So I didn't embark on this for a revenue, but it would be a nice add. I did it to relieve congestion on Elm Street because Elm Street's a nightmare.
Don't they say that police park on Elm Street and take a lot of the spots?
Not anymore. Now that we gave free parking in the Park Street, in the Lucas lot and the Richmond lot to employees, that really changed that. That was a huge problem forever. But the one thing we heard from the employees was the only way to get them off of Elm Street was to give it to them for free. So we made that happen in those 2 lots.
And they
Not
just,
to say that they don't, there's still
Yeah.
a few.
Yeah.
How much revenue do we get out of Park Street now?
gosh.
Oh, I don't know.
even
I'd have to look that
I'd
one
have
up.
to go, I'd
Yeah.
have to go look. I'd have to go look.
That used to be a commuter lot.
Yeah, I know. It's not, now we don't even have a full lumberyard lot, so,
That's right, yeah.
yeah,
So you would make that lot free and you'd put meters along Elm Street
yes.
and South Avenue. I
yeah,
presume.
not-
Iron Mike's the one parking machine.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
you could do, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, just like you
We
have.
talked about
on
meters
the-
years
Yeah.
ago, and I was like, they're so ugly. There's no way we're
Yeah.
doing that
Just
to our
like-
main street.
Yeah, just like
I
you
mean,
have there on Horse Court.
Right?
That's right.
I was at the parking commission last week and socialized it there. I've gotten really, I have to say, knock wood, I don't know. Maybe one member of the parking commission wasn't totally thrilled, but everyone else, every other place I've socialized this idea, everybody is fully on board. Like, because it makes sense. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that we're giving away our most valuable parking.
And to your point, it creates a terrible congestion,
Oh.
the loops, the people
Yep.
doing the.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just gotten so bad.
Lumberyard, she's going down. I mean, it used to be that we had 1,200 people on the wait list.
Somebody said there's not full anymore, right?
Right.
Right, but there's still a wait list because there's still the number of spaces, the number of permits that we've given out, you sell it like 2 times over. So there's not people using it all the time. So But that's why you're seeing these spaces, but people still have permits out.
That's revenue.
That's revenue.
Josh, anything else?
And Boxcar, we
Ian?
still make money off Boxcar, don't we? Yeah, okay.
There are a handful
Yeah.
of just administrative budget transfers.
Just any of the reviews first, just to make sure if there's
So
anything.
there is 35,509.18 in the review lines. Nothing really jumps out. People are kind of just
Singles and doubles here.
covering,
Mhm.
their shortages as the year comes to a close. And there is one budget transfer to approve, $20,000 from the outside contractors line in the highway department to cover overtime, as explained earlier.
I need a motion on that one. If you just saw it, it's the 20, you have it here. Did you see it? $20,000?
Yep.
Motion to approve, Maria. Second.
Second.
Chris, all in favor?
Aye.
Colin?
Thank you very much.
Great.
Opposed?
Thank you.
None? Okay, so moved. Unused capital, we do that every year. We do that in June, or we can do that in July?
June, because I want to get it off the books. for,
Yeah, okay, so
So
you
you'll
ready
have
for
it in
that?
front of you. I'm working on it.
Okay,
Great, yeah, hoping
perfect,
to get
perfect, okay, good,
a lot, I'm hoping.
okay. That's it. Any other items? Anyone, any questions? In June, we'll, particularly, you're not here in June. Okay, so we'll take care of that. Okay, but nothing else? Motion to adjourn. Maria, second. Nick, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
None, thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Colin.
Thanks, Colin.